Our top story this hour, President Donald Trump has addressed the mystery surrounding the missing Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Earlier this morning, while speaking at the White House, he suggested rogue killers may be responsible for Khashoggi's alleged murder. He says he's instructed Secretary of State Mike Pompeo to leave for Saudi Arabia immediately.
I just spoke with the King of Saudi Arabia, who denies any knowledge of what took place with regard to, as he said, his Saudi Arabian citizen. I've asked, and he firmly denied that, I've asked Secretary of State Mike Pompeo to immediately get on a plane, go to Saudi Arabia, go to other places if necessary, which he probably will, but with regard to this, go to Turkey if necessary.
Trump's words come as individuals, corporations, and organizations have started to reevaluate their relationship with Saudi Arabia amid the Khashoggi controversy. Over the last few days, several prominent CEOs and media outlets announced their withdrawal from the second annual Future Investment Initiative in the Saudi capital, scheduled to take place at the end of the month. Dubbed Davos in the Desert, the conference was launched by Saudi last year as part of an attempt to solidify links between Riyadh and the international business elite.
What's the use of dreamers and thinkers if they don't connect with decision makers, leading investors, and global experts? And what good is investment if it doesn't have a return on humanity? Future Investment Initiative is the global platform of future trends and growth opportunities.
Following the disappearance of Khashoggi, multiple prominent attendees announced they've canceled their trip to the conference, including Virgin Group's Richard Branson, Uber CEO Dara Khosrowshahi, JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon, and Ford Chairman Bill Ford. Media sponsors have bowed out as well. CNN, CNBC, the Financial Times, and Bloomberg have each announced a pullout. Several scheduled speakers, including the editor-in-chief of The Economist, also said they no longer plan to attend. Khashoggi's disappearance has also drawn harsh criticism from surprising figures, including Obama-era CIA Director John Brennan, who declared on Twitter, quote, "Jamal Khashoggi's apparent death at the Saudi consulate in Istanbul is an atrocity, and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's close ties to the White House must not stand in the way of a full and forceful U.S. response." What could such a forceful U.S. response look like? Recall that back in 2017, President Donald Trump and Saudi King Salman finalized a historic $110 billion arms deal. The agreement came 2 years into Saudi Arabia's war on Yemen, which has resulted in the deaths of tens of thousands of people and the displacement of millions. The war, combined with the Saudi-imposed economic blockade of Yemen, has left over 17 million people at risk of famine and led to a cholera outbreak characterized as the worst recorded in modern history. Save the Children estimates that in 2017, at least 130 Yemeni kids died each day, leading to a total of over 50,000 killed last year alone. All of this was true when the CEOs and media groups I listed earlier made plans to visit Saudi Arabia for this year's Future Investment Initiative, but apparently did not upset them as much as the alleged killing of Jamal Khashoggi. No, it took the alleged murder of a Washington Post contributor for the media to finally bother asking President Trump if he'd reconsider that arms deal with Saudi Arabia. Here's how the president responded.
I worked very hard to get the order for the military. It's $110 billion. I believe it's the largest order ever made. It's 450,000 jobs. It's the best equipment in the world. But if they don't buy it from us, they're going to buy it from Russia, or they're going to buy it from China, or they're going to buy it from other countries.
With Saudi Arabia in question, earlier today I spoke with former UK MP George Galloway. I asked him what it tells us that the corporate press is more upset over the unconfirmed murder of a journalist than the ongoing humanitarian catastrophe in Yemen.
Well, it shows you that a bus full of Yemeni school children isn't worth the hair on the head of a Washington Post reporter, which speaks volumes in itself. But of course, we shouldn't let the Saudi regime off the hook just because of the double standards of those now pulling out of their visit to the country. The media especially. Thomas Friedman of the New York Times was effectively a PR man for the Saudi regime and its crown prince in particular, as was CNN, as was the BBC, the London Times, and even the Manchester Guardian, supposedly the sentinel of progressive and liberal opinion in Britain. All of them were swept off their feet by this rock star prince and they called him that,
right,
who they hailed as a reformer, as a man who was going to drag Saudi Arabia out of the 19th century and closer to our own. And it was all balderdash. It was all smoke and mirrors. It was all PR spin. The Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia is a killer and a murderer and a thief, just like those that went before him.
Well, you mentioned his tour in the United States when he met with, everyone from the White House, of course, but to Wall Street bankers, to Uber CEO Jeff Bezos, the Clintons, even Oprah, I think, met with Salman when he was here. Though CIA Director John Brennan, in this tweet that I discussed, actually claims this close relationship with Saudi Arabia is unique to the White House. I should mention Brennan was actually stationed in Saudi Arabia in the 1990s. Is that a fair charge to say that this is solely something coming from the Trump administration?
No, it's absurd. In fact, if anything, Trump has been more rude in public to the Saudi autocracy, dictatorship, than previous presidents. The Clintons, both of them, were into the pockets of the Saudi regime for many, many millions of dollars. All U.S. presidents, since FDR, since Bitter Lake, have been in this unholy, perverse relationship to the Saudi royal family, and it's all been about money. Never mind the profits, peace be upon them. They're interested in the profits and how to get a piece of them.
And what about the war in Yemen, George? Because it's slated to be the worst humanitarian catastrophe since World War II. We're seeing the worst cholera outbreak recorded in modern history. Yet there's almost no talk of this when the news outlets are discussing Khashoggi or Saudi Arabia at all. How can that change, and where do you see this war going? I mean, everyone seems to agree that it's a losing battle for Saudi.
I think we have a chance now. There is a conscientized, a woke public now to the crimes of the Saudis, and it's the job of people like me to make sure that they know the wider picture of Saudi Arabian crimes. Not just, by the way, against the people of Yemen, though that is on a truly biblical scale, but against the people of Syria, where they have armed and financed the worst people on the earth, the head choppers, the heart eaters, the mass murderers of Islamist fundamentalism, against their own people who they are executing by cutting their heads in public off their shoulders at a record rate. They crucify people. They are getting ready to crucify and behead a woman prisoner for the first time, a woman political prisoner for the first time. They've murdered many women, of course, usually domestic servants. But a Saudi woman dissident is due to be executed any day now. And we have a chance, now that the public is woke to this ugly regime, to point out the general ugliness of which they're guilty.
That seems to be a silver lining to this cloud, that we can use the opportunity to talk about the crimes the Saudi government is accused of committing and perhaps shine the light on the devastating tragedy in Yemen. Former UK MP George Galloway, thank you so much for your time.
Welcome.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.